That's all I got.
That's all you got?
I'm waiting for the applause. There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
Did that come through? I can't even hear that. Okay.
Yep. You're
right.
having some little struggles this morning, but we'll get through it. Sometimes the technology doesn't support what we're trying to accomplish here.
All right.
So, well, welcome home.
Yeah, likewise.
Well, I got in a day earlier than you. Good, successful and enjoyable week at Affiliated Distributors Functional Success Summit. It was great to have you in tow at one of these events. I don't get to do that very often, so it's good for you to hear the voice of our customers and prospects out there. So, and
yeah, I was thinking about, we didn't really have one. Maybe we had one, but very little conversation about quote unquote CRM.
Yeah.
Really, the conversations that were taking place is how do I, help our sales team, enable our sales team, our marketing team, but sales team in particular, make more money, provide, more value to their customer, be more consultative, which is great. I mean, that's a lot of what we do, but it was really nice to be, I thought, not talking about sort of this, perils of traditional CRM that we've dealt with in the past.
Yeah, I got a little different take out of it. First, you're correct. Absolutely. There was very little of that traditional CRM, though the room was full of people pitching CRM.
Sure.
Right. So where we were, just for those of you who probably aren't aware, is Affiliated Distributors, one of the largest buying groups for independent wholesale distributors in North America. They do their national meetings for all their different divisions throughout the year. We've got one in Chicago in about, I guess, just a little short of a month, and then a handful of them this fall. But they get together every year and they bring their members, I don't know, 1,300, I think members are at somewhere in that now. They bring those folks together for a few days. The last 2 years have been in Orlando. Look forward to it getting somewhere a little less sticky in July to do that yet, but they bring those people together for that, where they have folks talking about technology, marketing, HR, and e-commerce. So different tracks that people can be on. And so we were there exhibiting and listening in and learning and sharing and talking. But so it was a great event. I got to see a bunch of good customers and get to know some new customers better that we hadn't even met in person yet. A handful of prospects, a wonderful final night out with a customer, a prospect, and a partner. And so it's great to get out with Pierre from Oblico, the mobile messaging and data company. And so just a fantastic evening out. I don't know how you were feeling on Wednesday morning, but I was a little slower than normal. Steak and wine.
Yeah, I think that's what put me over the edge.
It is. Well, that's why you got back from going to the restroom when the cocktails came, and that's why I got you a double gin and tonic, and that was killing.
I should have had a triple. Yeah,
that's right. A triple would have killed everything. So, but anyways, great event. But the side note with that is, or the important part of it actually is, what you had just mentioned is that what I caught with a lot of folks is definitely what you were describing, right? Wanting to help enable our sales teams more, understand our customers better, find ways to grow that are more significant than we've historically done. But the other component of that was, what are we doing in our organization to get ourselves ready for the future? And we have all this data, right? We have kind of two things that we discuss a lot, right? We have everybody that we talk to, right? Why would you be in business if you're not looking to grow? So everybody's looking to grow. But the other thing that they're seeing is that they've got some risks ahead of them right now. And some of these conversations of identifying that risk came out of conversations we were having with people even realizing what was going on. Is they've got disparate data across their business, right? We've got maybe a data lake or a data warehouse, and we've got ERP and marketing automation and e-commerce and all these different point software products, but no ability to bring those things together to really get a full view. Because what that does, it not only gives us the full view of what's going on with our customer, but on top of that, it allows them to get a deeper view across their overall organization by using all of those data points. So I think there's an awareness coming, and I think what's people are starting to really recognize, at least the most forward thinking of folks out there are starting to recognize, is that we have they have all this information, but they're recognizing that what got us here is not going to get us there in an age of technology. So I was excited with how open-minded a lot of folks were.
Yeah, I was excited. I guess I thought the conversations were more progressive than I expected.
Mhm.
Now, granted, I haven't been out for a year or so for one of these.
Which is why you
So, but
got
if I compare,
to get you in public more.
yeah, but if I compare what we talked about a year ago versus
Mhm.
the conversation, way more progressive,
Yeah, great comment.
and
Great point.
I thought that was really great to hear. That was my big takeaway.
Well, I think, and I'm glad you're saying that. I think what goes with that, Tom, is there's I guess a buffer that has to go with what you were seeing is that we were at an event where progressive companies were going to go learn, right? So
Sure, but
that's
I was there, but I was at that same event a year ago,
yes,
right? So
yes,
I could compare apples to apples, at least
yes.
from that perspective.
That's great.
So,
Yep, yep.
all right.
Yeah. So, anyways, why don't we introduce ourselves rather than just talking and going from there? But I'm Kevin Brown. This is Tom Burton. We get together every Friday morning and chat about the news of the week and how the news of the week in the economy and supply chain, M&A, sales, marketing, AI, robotics, you name it, how all those things come together and impact wholesale distribution and manufacturing. So we do this again each Friday morning. We do it live on LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, and Facebook Live. So if you're joining us here, we'd love you to pop your hand up and raise your hand like Bob did a minute ago and share that he's with us. We'd love to hear from you and your thoughts on what we're discussing today. And we're here for episode number 198. So we've been doing this a long time now and looking forward to getting past 200 and doing it for a lot longer as well. Most of our audience, in fact, the vast majority of our audience now is on Apple or Spotify or Amazon or Odyssey or one of the different podcast platforms. So if you're listening to us on the recorded podcast versus with us live today, you're not going to be seeing our two handsome faces, nor will you be seeing the newsletter that we publish that drives the discussion that we have here. That newsletter is called Around the Horn in Wholesale Distribution and Manufacturing. It's going out to 12 or 13,000 people now each week, and I don't know, 5 or 6 countries are getting it. So we would love to get that to you. If you'd like to get that newsletter, a couple simple ways. You can just send us a simple email at hello@leadsmarttech.com, which is the company that Tom and I work at, and we'll get that information out to you. You could just follow us on LinkedIn, or you could request the newsletter there, or search for the Around the Horn and Wholesale Distribution newsletter on LinkedIn. You'll see that there, and you can subscribe there. Or the very other simple way is to go to our website for the podcast, www.aroundthehornpod.com, and you can sign up there as well as listen to all past episodes and search all of those as well. So we'd love to have you experience that newsletter as well. Again, it goes out every Friday morning to a large group of people. We'd love to have you join that. Finally, we'd love to make a request of you. If you're with us, if you had an opportunity to please to jump on Apple or Spotify or YouTube and click the like and subscribe button, and even better yet, if possible, leave us a review. Let us know what you like about the show, and when you do that, it triggers some of those algorithms that get this out to other distribution and manufacturing professionals like you that might enjoy this as well. Normally, as I started to mention earlier, we get between 5 and 8 different countries around the world that are listening in each week. So we'd love to expand that out and get more people enjoying this as well. So we'd love it if you do this for us. Lastly, we couldn't do this if we didn't have the sponsorship of the company that Tom and I work for. There's a front end cost of people involved in this, and a back end cost with an editor and a producer and all the things that goes in putting together a show like this for, I don't know, coming up on 4 years, I guess it is now. And that costs money. So we have the sponsorship of the company that Tom and I work for, LeadSmart Technologies. LeadSmart has developed the industry's first and only enterprise growth platform, something that we're going through our launching phase of right now. While our company's been around for about 6 years, we've historically been known as a AI-enabled smart CRM company, but we've really expanded that out where CRM has become a component of what we do versus what we do. So we've brought 4 different growth engines related to sales enablement, called Sales Compass, and our Smart CRM solution, as well as marketing tools and quoting tools, and soon to be e-commerce tools. We brought those all together again in what we call an enterprise growth platform, which gives wholesale distributors and manufacturers an insight across all facets of their business for all people in their business. So now, instead of having a sales and marketing team using a CRM, we have tools for purchasing, for operations, for executives and other folks within an organization. So if your company is looking to digitally expand and grow and use AI and look at data from across your organization to understand your customers, your teams, and your whole company better, we'd love to share what that new Meridian 360 enterprise growth platform is. So Tom, I talked a lot. Why don't you get us started on the news?
Let me see here. Oh, well, hold on.
Hold on. Hang on. Is it coming?
It's getting there.
There we go.
Okay, there we go.
Coming up. Round the horn wholesale distribution.
Real quick, I wanted to thank people, all the people that came by the booth that were podcast listeners and had kind words and things like that from the podcast. That was really cool.
Isn't that great? We got a few selfies. I should have mentioned that earlier, that was just going to try and find, we just got this great selfie and that we got on, where did that go? Here we go. This is from Rhonda from the Capital Group. I wish I had the picture. She came by, and before we got to talk with Rhonda and her team about what we do at LeadSmart, we got to talk about the podcast. We had a handful of people come by and mention that. So that's kind of exciting. And then yesterday, we were on a call with another organization and talking about even doing one later this year and one next year, some live on-site podcast episodes at some major industry events. So kind of fun to see the show grow. Nothing better than to stroke the ego of a couple of old dudes like us that get together and chat each week by having people pop by. So one in particular,
they're probably disappointed when they met us live.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
well, all the makeup that we do and the AI that we do each day to make us look better on the show.
That's true. That's true. So, they didn't even recognize us when we saw us in person.
That's right. Very good. So, hey, let's dive in and talk about the economy this week. So inflation cooled a little bit more than expected in June as gas prices fell, but now they're going back up. So we'll see what July holds, huh?
Yeah, I didn't notice much gas prices lower here where I live. If they were there, it was a blip. But yeah, it looks like there was some relief, at least again, based on the data that's available. We'll see how long that sticks around.
Hey, Tom.
Yes.
Hey, Tom. Order your Tesla.
Why would I do that?
So you can avoid the gas prices.
Well, I don't drive, so it's like, I don't drive very often.
Yeah, that's well, you had to drive home from LA yesterday. That wasn't any fun, right?
That's true. Well, that's a different story.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of comes next with things right now. We're going to talk in a few minutes a little bit more about what's going on in the Middle East and Iran and the conflict there and the impact that's having on shipping and so forth, and a couple of pretty significant developments with that this week. But that's got to get solved, right, and get that taken care of and get those things open. So it's and again, it's not just the impact of the oil; it's all of the other things. It's the heavy minerals, the helium. It's the things that go into fertilizers that are impacting a lot with that. So we're going to see what comes out of that. So now we've got these economic factors. So things cooled a little bit, which is good. But now we've got the Fed chairman, Kevin Warsh, sat before Congress for 2 days this week and got to expand a little bit more about what some of his thinking is on things regarding the economy and interest rates and so forth. Any takeaways, or did you get a chance to listen to any of that? I caught a little bit of it actually from my hotel.
I did not listen to it. No, did you?
I caught parts of it. There were people who were very supportive of him, and but really kind of both parties, agreed, including with him, that prices have been going up too quickly, and we saw a little bit of a dip last month, but in general, things are going up. And but what I thought was interesting is he was finally now starting to really, as I look at the article that we posted here in the newsletter from CNBC, one of the key points was that Warsh is questioning traditional inflation gauges, including CPI and PPI, while launching reviews of how the Fed measures prices. So I was listening to a podcast over the last few years where regularly one of the hosts talks about checking in on those measurements.
Well, but he's still pushing forward on his 2%. I think he said, though, the 2%, he doesn't believe will hit the 2% until 2028. I don't know where that came from or why, maybe that's just kicking the ball down the field. But he still is.
I don't think he said that this week per se. He's in the past and his previous testimony and then his news conference. I don't know that he used the 2%, but the interesting thing is, right? This is one of the quotes he said. He said he's going to reject the mission accomplished component of what is often said. He said even after positive June inflation data showed a cooling prices to 3.5% annually, he cautioned against declaring any type of victory. He explicitly told lawmakers, "I'm not cherry picking, and I'm not going to show up here and say a mission accomplished." So he said he's just got to continue to focus on the data. But then there's now he's bringing in these other outside groups, right, with market research groups like that to help them analyze how are we looking at things.
Were you invited to one of those task force?
Well, they've not been able to get me scheduled in yet, but they've been reaching out to my executive assistant on, getting that done. So,
okay, well, maybe that you can kind of straighten them out, and let them know that this 2% was kind of an arbitrary thing that came up out of nowhere. So, let's do some AI and analyze it and figure out what is really the right number.
Well, and it's interesting. I've been kind of the one, obviously, talking about the issue with 2% is whether that's the right number or not. Maybe there's a second way to look at that as well. Maybe that is the right number if we're analyzing all of the right data in the right way. So we're not guessing at the future from dot plots and antiquated tools. And we're not looking at, data that's months old and that is constantly being revised, right? It's like, we've talked about, right? This is 2026. You have live insight into what's happening in all of the markets, right? There's a ton of information that's out there about what the consumers and manufacturers are doing that should be, I don't know exactly how they go gather the data for the producer price index for manufacturers, but I guarantee you it's not any live connections with people that probably a lot of organizations would be more than willing to connect by API with live data where they could really see what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's encouraging to me with this is he's got, I think, just a very different take. I shouldn't say maybe very different, but certainly a different take than Jerome Powell. It seems like Jerome Powell was just fine to stay crusty and use all the same tools and just focus on what he needed to do. And I think Jerome Powell was really sitting in a place where he was, in all fairness, he was in a difficult spot coming out of COVID and so forth, and after a flood of free money into the market, having to come back and try and make some adjustments to this. But I think at the same time, he seemed to be just running scared the whole time.
Yeah, I don't think he wanted to put himself with a target on his back.
So, he wanted to make sure his books sold.
Yeah, but I agree. The progressive may be the word of the day, but I do think Warsh is being way more progressive and looking at what's going to go on. We'll see where that actually plays out, and how those numbers look.
Yeah. Well, and the struggle here is it just kind of goes back to CPI fell 0.4%, PPI 0.3%. Another comment from him was that I have this old-fashioned view that monetary policy has something to do with money, which is pretty funny to see. But as we think about our audience and our market, right, that we work with and in wholesale distribution, you've got folks that are just now from our view, right, our experience with them is we don't have anybody that's afraid to spend money, but look at the planning that we're doing within our company that you and I run, looking at what are rates like, what are we expecting from our customers? Will some of these rates impact our customers enough that maybe they don't take the actions we'd like them to take? We certainly haven't seen that yet, but there's just so much instability and unsureness. It's, I guess the lack of clarity is the new norm.
Yeah. You just have to go to PolyMarket and follow PolyMarket.
Which, is interesting. Our guest last week, Jason Hine, was really had some interesting thoughts. I thought that about prediction markets, right? Whether it's Kalshi or that, is in it. I haven't done any of the research that came to my mind that I'd like to go do with that, but it's interesting when you think about that. I'm going to digress for a second, thinking about prediction markets in that setting. Is that you've got anybody out there, right? So let me take a step back for a second, Tom. We saw an impact of the prediction markets on the presidential election in 2024, right? They were seeing a sentiment of people, and as that sentiment, if I think I understand this correctly, that sentiment continued to be seen and rising, and as more people saw it, more people came around to the same idea, and you saw this landslide win in the election that a lot of people weren't seeing from traditional methods of tracking voters, right? Again, back to not using the most sophisticated methods. And that's one thing that people making a decision and getting to push forward with that. But as you start thinking about, I don't want to say policy, but economic impact, Jason's point was, is this really a good thing if you have very uninformed or uneducated people that are coming up with wild ideas, and then those things take over because other people see those and get excited about what it means because they're also lacking data and information. So I don't know if that system is good enough to correct itself or not.
I think at the end of the day, you just have to look at the numbers, right? Are the predictions, and obviously they're putting their money where their mouth is because they're paying out right on the bets that are being made from those.
Mm-hmm.
So if the number or the predictions have got to be much more correct than not correct, otherwise they would, be losing money. It's like Vegas, right? If Vegas handicaps football games the wrong way too much, right, or the spreads the wrong way or whatever, you're going to lose too much money. It's not going to work.
But you're not betting against Kalshi in this or PolyMarket. You're betting against others that are in the market, right?
Sure, but they're handicapping all of that through the process there, right? Based on what the payouts and everything like that are coming through them.
But they just make a vig on that, right?
Yeah, but still, if it's way off, it's way out of Vegas. It's just no different than Vegas, right? If it's way off, then you're going to end up being in a bad situation, right? So because you're paying quote unquote much higher odds for the lower probability event, right? So if the lower probability event is hitting more often than you anticipate, and you're paying way more out, you're not going to make money. But I do think it would be worthwhile looking into how right are these? What is their percentage of correctness? I think so far it's been pretty good. And, I thought Jason's point was valid. I just don't know if, you call it the dumb money or the dumb the people that don't know, does it really influence it that much? And so yeah, maybe there's some more homework we should do on that. So
it's like me being sitting down at a blackjack table next to you and some other sophisticated gamblers, and I don't know what I should be doing. I'm just trying to figure out what the numbers are in front of me. But you guys are watching what should be coming out of the deck next, right? I'm influencing your game with my lack of sophistication.
Sure. But the house at the end of the day is still going to win their percentage, right? Regardless of you or me.
But I think that's what I want to go understand further, because I don't think that's how PolyMarket or Kalshi is. That's their role is different, right? They're the platform that's facilitating.
No, they're not. Right. It's more like sports betting, right?
Well, I would say it's more like, if you were to go back to my blackjack analysis, it's like the house was just there to facilitate the flipping of the cards.
That's right.
And I'm betting against you versus the house that's flipping the cards.
That is correct, which is not the way the blackjacks work.
Yes.
But for football betting or sports betting, that's why a lot of these prediction markets are getting into sports betting, right? It's the same concept. Anyway, I think a little more homework would be good. I will put that on my to-do list for our next show.
Well, I think you should download both apps. You're a gambler, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll find some good. In fact, I'll make a couple of bets and we'll see how they play out.
I think this is
I'll make some dumb money. We'll do something I know nothing about, like, you know, I don't know, something about Taylor Swift or something like that. I'll find something I know nothing
Tom,
about.
you're a Swiftie. Come on, you're a Swiftie.
I'll make some dumb bets on that. We'll see how it goes.
You know what I think would be interesting to do is open a Kalshi and a PolyMarket account and make informed bets on one thing on one platform and a dumb bet on another one and see what plays out.
Okay.
Yeah. Who's going to win the soccer game, by the way?
Probably Argentina.
Think so?
But that's a question for PolyMarket. I don't know.
I'd be shocked if Spain doesn't, but we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. So let's dive back into our news here with the time we have left today. So something kind of we were talking about earlier is this, this Hormuz Strait thing, right? So now we've got this whole, was it a peace treaty? It was an MOU, right? That the U.S. and Iran had. And, the whole time through that, I think Iran was saying, no, this is not really what they're describing it as. And Pakistan, it's pretty cool to see, a smaller nation like that getting between the U.S. and somebody to try and help facilitate something, which I think is kind of interesting. But now we're full speed ahead back with bombing, right? And what I thought was really intriguing was, in fact, I was just going to check on this.
Let's while you're doing that, I did a little bit of homework on this.
Okay, good.
And we may have hit on this before, but I have up on the screen here.
Oh, cool.
Right, the map of the Strait of Hormuz.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked a little bit about this before, but I think it's worth going through again. So the strait here between, and I know people, if you're listening, you can't see it, but the strait from one end to the other is about 22 miles, 23 miles or whatever, right? You have Iran over here, right? And supposedly the strait is not owned by anybody. So it's not Iran Strait. I think this is Oman here. It's not owned by any country. Mm-hmm. However, there's international waters for each of the countries that can go out about 12 miles that are here.
You've got your coastal ownership, right, so to speak. You would control both Oman and Iran in that setting, right? And you've got just below that, just below Oman is Dubai and UAE.
Yeah. So anyway, what was interesting to me, which I didn't fully understand, is that this whole thing with Iran trying to be a bully, basically, in the Strait of Hormuz has been going on for many, many years.
Right.
Like 20 or 30 years. And I guess in the 80s, they did something. Sorry?
It's all they've got as leverage.
Yeah. But what they've done, and this isn't new, right? So originally, they were trying to control the strait through Navy, like Navy ships. Mm-hmm. The problem is they're sitting ducks, right? The U.S. could probably, could take out their Navy operations here pretty easily. So what they've been literally over the last 30 or 40 years is building in kind of much more stealth ways of attacking on here through drones and missiles. Supposedly if you look kind of along here, along this bank, there's like missiles and drones set up and all kinds of other things, all kind of along here that were designed for this purpose, which is to, when the time came, how do we bully way through the strait, right? So this is not a new thing. This is something that's been going on for quite a while. Yeah, along the way. What I don't understand is when we went into this war, we had to have known this, right? Of course. We had to have, in fact, what I've been reading is that Iran has almost been waiting for this opportunity to be more of a bully and take more control of the Strait of Hormuz, which just seems like exactly what has been occurring. Mm-hmm. But they've used the war and the conflict, I guess is what it was called, right? They've used the conflict as an excuse to be more of a bully as it relates to the strait here. What I found though, what I found pretty interesting, this was one of our charts that we had here, right? Is if you look at the reality of it and some of the comments that are being said, the US government, for example, says Strait is open to commercial traffic. What that meant is that 6 vehicles transited on peak disruption day, right? So there's what it means is there's a handful, right? I mean, on any given day, it might be more or less, but it's a handful. Right. Iran says Strait declared closed. What that really means is naval forces actively stopping and disabling vessels.
Yes. So good chart. This is a great chart, isn't it?
Yeah. But what's really going on is the fact that there is more traffic going through because there's a lot of widespread transponder deactivation and rerouting. So if transmitters are not being on the ships, you can't hear. So they're kind of stealthily going through the process here itself. I guess in what kind of taken as I kind of did the homework on this, this is not a new thing. We had to have known, the US had to have been an intelligence knowing that this was going to happen, right, along the way. And they had to have known that this wasn't going to be an easy thing to address, right? Because the Navy, again, just can't go wipe out some Navy ship here or whatever along the way. So it just seems interesting that this was something, because this is what is continuing to be, the war or the conflict is going on. I wouldn't say there's been massive conflict or massive strikes one way or the other, but it all seems to come back to the strait here.
Well, I think that's a great point, Tom, and thank you for that expanded view on that and the analysis, because it's valuable to the discussion as a whole. But I think what's interesting with this is what's going on now, which is kind of interesting, and I'm going to tie this, what you're describing, back into the bigger picture. It's their only leverage, but obviously right now is they just said a couple of days ago that their intention is, because Iran is the money behind the Houthi rebels that are in other parts of really tied to the Suez Canal, that are basically saying if the US starts destroying more Iranian infrastructure, is that they've got instructions already to the Houthi rebels to shut down the Suez Canal, right? So now you've got another faction of, I'm just say terrorists that are funded by Iran. And Iran, now I don't know if they were able to get that, was it 60 billion or something like that had been blocked by the U.S. previously. That they were supposed to get access to that coming out of the MOU that was just agreed upon. They were supposed to get access, but obviously they had plenty of money before that, so they're funding these Houthi rebels. And if we go back to this and say, okay, now we're going to have you attack our infrastructure, then we'll end up going and getting these Houthi rebels to shut down the Suez Canal, or start sending drones in at ships that are Suez Canal. People don't want to pass the Suez Canal. They can't get through the Strait of Hormuz. And that is dramatically more impact than what we've been seeing now, to the point that this, tying into one of our following articles here, is that the European Central Bank raised interest rates this week by 25 basis points because of a spike in oil. Now, in this country, right, not only is oil not coming in the same way that it's supposed to, but our reserves are way low. And so this is getting ready to have a much bigger impact than just the price of crude oil that we're looking at here, and what people are paying at the pump. It could potentially be a shortage. Now, one of the things I'd love to go look at, and I haven't just came to my mind, had thought of, but we talked about this well over a month ago, that Europe, if they didn't get an increase in the amount of tankers coming into the EU, was within weeks of running out of jet fuel. Right, to the point that Ryanair and a couple of the low-cost carriers were cutting back on flights. So it's kind of an interesting take right now on what's going on with that, because it's pretty dramatic. And the US only really has one option, right, of what they're looking at with this, is to go push harder on infrastructure and so forth, which is like obviously what's going on right now. The president is saying that their Navy is destroyed, is that really the case? I'm not sure. But now we've got this. If this Houthi rebels start doing their thing, this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I don't see this getting resolved. Let's put it that way.
And don't see it getting. I lost you for a second. Don't see it getting resolved or resolved soon.
I don't see this getting resolved anytime soon. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And as we just talked about, we were talking to before, oil prices haven't skyrocketed like they did before, where they were doing before, but they certainly have gone up. But again, going back to our industry, I don't think that this conflict, quote unquote, is going to be resolved. And that when I say conflict, really, it does come down to this whole supply chain, Strait of Hormuz.
Sure.
All the things you just talked about seems to be the center of everything.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. And if you look at this, right, 2 weeks ago, with that map that you just had up, 2 weeks ago, we saw a flood of boats moving in both directions in the Hormuz Strait with green. They were green arrows moving. And now you've got a lot more red arrows of things sitting still. Now, I think it was a little bit silly earlier in the week when the president was talking about exacting a tax. Because if you want to exact a tax for people going through there, now you're just a pirate, right?
Yeah, well, that's what Iran's been wanting to do, right? They wanted to control the strait and be able to tax or do whatever they're going to do on that. But again, this is something that is not a new. This is not a new thing.
Well, we've put a series of articles in today's newsletter. Again, if you don't get our newsletter around the horn and wholesale distribution and manufacturing, please let us know. You can just find it easily with a search on LinkedIn. You can send us an email at hello@leadsmarttech.com or go to our website, aroundthehornpod.com, and you will be able to find that there. But with 20+% of the world's oil going through that, well, where's the other 80%? A big percentage of that is actually, China has a big need for imports of oil, but they're making their drilling for their own oil. Obviously, the U.S. is, Canada is. You've got tons and tons of that in Central America, South America, and Mexico. So, but and that's I don't know what percentage of it goes through the Suez Canal and other areas to leave the Middle East, but the 20% of that is a big factor in this case. And what we're not thinking about, or we've not at least talked about today, we've talked about in the past, is back to our audience of manufacturers and wholesale distributors is, would this be a bigger impact if we had something shut down coming out of China? Perhaps, but all of the things, every plastic component that you have, if you just looked around you right now, if you're listening, and just look around you and look at every piece of rubber or plastic that you have, that is all made from, and particularly the plastic, is made by literally shiploads of little beads that come to us. And it's either coming that way or it's coming in either in natural gas or in oil, and then that's being produced here. So every piece of plastic that's coming from China or coming from being made here, it's whether it's in, rotationally molded, injection molded, it's going a component into the widget that you sell, whether you sell air conditioning units or you sell hard hats that are, a plastic core, whatever it might be that you've got all of that into. That's where that's all coming from. And so as we think about the disruption in supply chain, and the lack of reliability that we have in the supply chain, this is a big deal. And the problem right now is I pride myself on not being an expert on war. I don't even like to think about war, but the reality of it is it's more and more looking at like the only way to solve this is going to be ground troops. And then what does the economy do if we're in a real war?
Yep. This was supposed to be quick, right? It was not supposed to be an ongoing forever war. And at this point, I don't see an off ramp, a simple off ramp here. And I don't think the back and forth sort of let's go have another talk. Clearly that hasn't really worked.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I agree completely, and I think we're in for a little bit longer of a haul here, right?
Yeah.
So you've got that, and then the last article that we have here is that the supply chain section is that supply chain's bracing for the looming threat of a super El Nino. So we're going to have weather impacts coming into the supply chain. We've got fuel. It's going to be an interesting 2027, as I think what's kind of building up right now.
Yeah, the El Nino one is obviously speculative at this point, but it's speculating
Well,
that
the models are certainly saying
sure,
that's what's coming.
sure,
So
right. But that will be a drought in the Panama Canal again, and there will be water shortages there, and
yeah,
that's going to come back and create the thing there. But we've seen this before. We've seen different models for El Nino in the past. I remember an El Nino here a few years ago. We were going to get tons of rain, and none of it materialized. So
yeah,
it's hard to say exactly.
The little bit that I've read is the models are more dramatic right now for this than they've been in the past. So we'll see what comes of it. So
We'll see.
We'll see what comes of it. But anyways, let's dive down into our. I'd like to actually slide right into our AI segment with the time we have today. There's a great article. I think, Tom, maybe let's before you finish. I apologize. There's an article in there about the last one is. Brad Jacobs and his team at QXO, who have been out acquiring a lot of companies in the building material and roofing space. They acquired the first off was Beacon Roofing, and then the Kodiak Group, and so forth. They put together in a report some great information that if you get a chance, look at it in the newsletter. I think it might be good for us to post that again next week. Maybe we'll add it in again next week, and we can discuss it a little bit further. We're going to cut ourselves a little short today because you're fighting the flu and I've got somewhere I've got to be. But let's dive into our AI segment, and I'll let you pick those.
Oh, is there anything in that report that you
There's
want
a ton. It's worth it. We could do easy 10 minutes on that, and then we would miss the other stuff. So we'll just post it again.
Okay. All right. So which one would you like for us to?
I was gonna let you go.
Well, you're thinking faster and better than I am today. So.
What do you mean today?
Oh well, yeah, always.
Sorry, couldn't miss that one. Well, there's a series of them that I think we can tie together. But Google's DeepMind leader there, that's very well respected amongst the Demis Hassabis, is calling for a U.S.-led global AI watchdog. I thought it'd maybe be interesting to just unpack that for a moment. I know you've had thoughts about that as far as having regulatory pieces with that, but the discussion behind this is really tied to the idea that there's so much going on when we think about, I guess, Fable and Mythos and some of the models that are coming out that could cause some damage. And you've got plenty of bad actors that are out there as well. They're talking about having an AI watchdog organization. So you with your computer science background and technology background, I thought I would see what your thoughts were, because I know historically you've not liked the idea of any regulatory agencies tied to AI.
So if you look at Fable or Mythos, and then I think it was ChatGPT 5.6,
right?
Both of them went through a kind of call it a government QA, quality assurance check, to again, I think spent they spent 30 days or 60 days or 45 days evaluating and doing some checking and some validation on the model, understanding the ramification or potential consequences or ramifications of the model, and then they were released to the public. In theory, I don't think that's such a horrible thing, right? I don't think especially on some of these higher powered models, having a beta test, or if you want to call it that, or a government alpha test that's going through. And now again, is the government going to be able to do a adequate job of these testing? And is it really going to do, that aside, the idea of having, again, some validation before the models go out and at least, if nothing else, it causes everybody to kind of understand the good, the bad, and the ugly with those when they're released. I don't think that is a horrible situation for higher pi, not every model, but for the higher end models.
Good.
What I've been against. Oh, go ahead.
No,
I've just been against. I've been against this sort of government, laws, or here's what you can do or can't do, or arbitrary sort of things, which I think would be stupid because they'd be out of date 2 minutes after they're released.
Mm-hmm.
They're almost not enforceable. But I do think that some of the larger models having again a QA or a validation period or something where they're looked at in that beta mode or alpha mode is not a horrible thing.
Right. I think that's
those. I mean, the Mythos model and the Fable model have some pretty powerful capabilities.
Right. On the positive and the negative or dangerous side, right?
Yeah.
The interesting thing for me about this, and I think when you're looking at it as a global organization, I think right now it makes sense because the U.S. is leading the world in models and so forth, right? Which is great. So my gut tells me with this, and without digging too deep, is that this is really going to mostly be U.S. and EU. Will be the biggest parts of this. I'm sure Canada will participate and so forth, but that'll be to a lesser impact. But I'm sure China has no interest in participating in this, and China's chasing right behind the U.S. in this. So how do you manage that in that case? Is if you've got the EU and the US coming together to put these groups in place, monitoring things and so forth. But you've got China that could care less about any of that and are going to do what they're going to do as well. And then you've got the other side of that is you've probably got some Russian groups and so forth that are probably more closely tied to the Chinese models that can have some danger to those things as well.
Yeah, it's by no means a foolproof approach, right? Mm-hmm. But like I said, in general, I don't think it's like any major software release, going through a alpha period or a beta period where there's some testing and some QA and all that kind of stuff. And in this case, related to what are the ramifications, they put some guardrails on some of the stuff here because of just some of the cyber flaws that was able to be identified through some of the models, and then you don't want hackers and so forth to get at that capability. But yes, it's not by any means a flawless process, and yes, China will do their thing on top of it. But in general, I don't think it's a horrible thing.
Yep. No, I think it'll be. This is something that we'll watch going through this. So. Couple articles that we have here, which I think are kind of interesting as well, tied to. We've had a lot of discussion about this. In fact, it was great. I was on a call yesterday with our friend Dirk Beveridge, that's going to be with us on our 200th show, which we'll start getting a lot more insight into with our guests and so forth that are coming to that shortly. But Dirk will be with us for that. But Dirk and I are doing a session for the Primera buying group, which is in the turf and ornamental horticulture distribution world. So we're leading the closing keynote for their 25th actually annual meeting in 3 weeks. And so we were on a call yesterday talking about that. And my side of the discussion is the technology side and what's going on in technology right now as it impacts distribution. Dirk's writing his second book about the human side of things and how we can maximize our lives, and when we can maximize our lives in general, and that's supported by our employer and the workplace that we have, that we can become better people overall. And then when we're better people, we become better contributors into the organization. So we're going to talk a lot about how that ties together with AI, right? Because now we hear so much discussion about AI eliminating jobs and so on and so forth. And there's so much discussion about the human side and the AI side. So this first article talks about why human judgment will matter more in the age of AI. And I think that there's a few of these. And then the next article there is talking about CEOs are creating AI twins for maybe being in meetings that they don't need to necessarily be personally in, or participating or managing, doing things that they don't have to do personally. So an interesting thing comes together with all of this, right, on the human component. And I think what we're leaning towards, and not even leaning towards, what we're seeing as we 3 years, almost 3 full years into, November of 2023, OpenAI brought ChatGPT out. Is that right?
22.
22. Okay. So we're
Yeah.
coming up on 4 years, right?
Yeah.
But what we're really seeing is that for those jobs that are going to be eliminated because of redundancy and so forth, there's plenty of other jobs for those people. But the reality of it is that AI needs a guide and a partner to really maximize its use. So I threw out a lot there. Anything you want to unpack on the human side of this?
So we've said this all the way along, right? I don't ever see AI replacing or completely replacing the human element that's required in it, right? It's the human element was different, and there'll be different jobs in different situations, right? But there is, even oversight. I think that's one of the other articles that were down here is, AI doesn't delivering the ROI people thought because it's not running on
Correct.
autopilot
Mhm.
completely, right?
Yep.
Now, physical AI, I think, will be a little bit of a different story. I think physical AI, you will have a lot of stuff running on autopilot, but there'll still be people behind the scenes, right, facilitating that and making that happen. The article about the digital twin, we use that all the time, right? As you always say, another brain in the room,
Mhm.
right? Or we're going through stuff. I don't know how that could not be good, but I wouldn't necessarily consider it being the end all be all, right?
Right.
There's things along those lines. And then there's this other article here. Hundreds of economists say in an open letter that institutions must act now to
Mhm.
address how artificial intelligence could transform the economy and put many people out of work. If you continue to read the article, it also goes into the upsides or the potential benefit of it
Yeah.
as well. It's
That one
like
that one was a little bit of a headline grab, right? It's like,
yeah,
let's a little shock and awe and some gore, and then get you in, and then actually kind of ends with talking about what
right.
we're talking about now.
But we talked about this last week, right? It's about I think we're going to have more job creation as a result
Mhm.
of this. It'll be different jobs, of course, and there will be some displacement,
Yep.
but I think in a lot of areas where people think there's displacement, there's actually going to be job increase there as well.
Yep.
And we really haven't seen that. If you look at the numbers, you haven't seen large scale job displacement yet.
Well, I think that ties into kind of the closing article there about from Marketing Profs, says why AI doesn't always deliver the savings enterprises expect. And there's some good charts and graphs in this article, and it talks about nearly 40% of companies that measured AI cost savings landed below 10%, besides targeting between 11 and 20%. And I think as you dig into this, people have been really looking for, well, it says here, most investment cases assume full automation economics, but only 7% of companies run fully autonomous agents. So I think we're still in this place where people are buying, some one-off point products that use AI. They don't have a true digital plan, and so they're going in with maybe what a vendor said they might expect to see, because, and we see this in wholesale distribution all the time, right, is you got some people making some amazing claims about what they can do. Well, they can do that if you have your data in order, a plan, or you're willing to spend a boatload of money with them or other consultants to help you get to that level, and it's still questionable.
Yeah.
So good. We're going to wind down a little bit faster than we normally do, Tom, as we kind of jump through that. We covered our AI segment fairly quickly. There's a lot to discuss there, but any of the other articles that we have today catch your attention that you want to discuss before we go? If you scroll through them.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through. There's definitely some. This would be an interesting one, but we're not going to really have time to get in that. I think now would be a good time just to wrap up.
Yeah, it's good. Well, but before we head out on that, the closing piece in our industry scuttlebutt section of the newsletter that we do each week is about a capstone project from MDM that talks about our friends at APR Supply and our buddy John Crognall. And so he was involved. This is great. We published it here, but it's a link to the American Supply Association. And so this was they leveraged the Master of Distribution Management program that APR Supply was taking part in, and they did a ton of research and a ton of work. And so John was involved with that, and John's our buddy. And so they talk about, interestingly enough, a 70% increase in sales tool adoption across the company within the first year, and increases in outside sales revenue and so forth. So that was kind of an exciting thing for them to be sharing and talking about in that. So we think we might know who the people are that they're referring to there.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to read that. I didn't read that one closely. So
APR is a wonderful customer of ours at LeadSmart, and I would actually rather refer to them as partners and friends. And we were doing some testing with them on our technology, and so this is great. Good people there, and congratulations to John. John's one of the sales leaders there. And
is he mentioned in the article?
The article mentions John specifically. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I
Yeah.
have to give him a hard time about that. Yeah.
Well, when you start feeling better, you can read the article a little closer and read between the lines and see about some of the technology that they're using and the success that they're having. So it's good stuff, but good people there, and loving to see the growth in their organization, and being a part of it is super. So that's going to wind us down for today. Tom, you need to go get well. And
yes.
I'm going to go see, I'm not sick, but I'm going to go see a doctor on some preventative things. And then back to my desk to follow up on the week. Other than getting well, anything good for the weekend?
No, just going to decompress, I hope, a little bit, and
just don't
be ready.
Go ahead.
They'll be ready to go for Monday.
Good. Don't forget, nothing can survive in 100 proof.
Yeah, well, I think that's what got me in the situation. So
no, it was the third helping of the pasta along with your steak. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm a wimp on humidity and heat. I was driving on that, whatever day it was, Wednesday, and I'd stopped to get some food, and it was 104 degrees, and I think the humidity was 80-some%.
Oh, easily.
And I just it just kind of, you can just feel it like suck the energy out of you. And I just think I'm a heat, and I'm Irish, right? So I'm not supposed to be able to take the heat and that.
Well, I think there's two components, right? Anytime you're traveling and you've got long days and late nights and so forth, that pushes our immunity down, and then you put that together with some stress that goes with it, and rushing and all of the other stuff, and sleep deprived, and then shaking a million hands and so forth. So get well. It will all be good. I will wish you health and success with getting better, and we'll wish everybody else a great weekend. Again, I'm Kevin Brown. This is Tom Burton. We do this every week. If you enjoyed what you heard here today, please click the like, subscribe, and review wherever you're listening at, and it'd be a big help to us, and we'd be greatly appreciative of it. We will be back again soon, and August 21st will be, while it will be past our 200th episode, we're going to do our a celebration of that as well. So looking forward to that. Again, if your organization is looking to grow like other organizations we were just talking about earlier, and seeing maximum return on investment of technology, we would love to support you in that. If you'd like to learn what a true enterprise growth platform is, where you can bring data from across your organization together and use technology to get deeper insights into your customers and your teams and your business to help accelerate growth, we would love to share that with you. So until then, we wish you a great weekend, and we wish you well. Be kind, be good, and do good things.
Thanks, everyone.